Okay, this is an attempt to kind of do a video blog post, sort of like my audio blogs. And I don't know whether it's going to be adequate and worthy of uploading. I'm using my little laptop, and I mean to elaborate on something that I started in my regular blog post yesterday. That was on July 1st. I mentioned in that blog post that I had been sort of offered a video on YouTube that seemed to come up by surprise to me, and that I had gone to it and started watching it because something about the thumbnail had seemed intriguing, and that watching it and then some related videos that came up after led me to start having some curious thoughts about whether the thing mentioned applied to me. That I went and took an online test that came back surprisingly positive, more positive, as I said, than some had been described in some of the people who did the videos. For some reason, I'm embarrassed to go into this, and it may mean that I won't upload this at all, but we'll see. The subject matter was Asperger's syndrome, which I guess now is called ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder Level 1 or whatever. I've done a little bit of reading on it since, but the things that are being said, certainly by the people in the videos and to some degree by the more clinical and professional stuff that I've read, not counting the DSM-5, which is very vague, frankly, is very familiar and kind of surprisingly familiar, because it reminds me of many things that I never really thought about before. I mean, I've always considered myself weird in a certain sense, and one of the ways I dealt with that was by kind of embracing it. Yeah, I'm weird. It's fine. It's good to be weird. Weird people are the ones who change the world, like that old stupid Apple commercial says. But some of the specific things or the ways that I've been weird seemed to resonate, and that kind of puzzled me. So I told you I had taken the test. It was the autism quotient or Asperger quotient autism. Anyway, the AQ test designed by Simon Baron Cohen et al. And apparently validated in a fair amount of research as a screening tool, not obviously as a final diagnostic thing. But the first time I took it, I scored a 38, and that was higher than, frankly, either of two people who I had heard or gotten info on their results when they first took it, when they were first diagnosed, also as adults. And it kind of surprised me, and I thought to myself, what, am I exaggerating things? Maybe I'm like saying what I think the test wants me to say, so to speak. So the next, I waited overnight. I thought about it. I'd watched some more videos and stuff. This was still the first 24 hours, and I took it again. And I tried hard not to exaggerate or to be dishonest or to be overdoing it. And it came back higher. It was 41, I think, the second time I took it. A little later, I took it again, 42. I took it from a different site a few days later, came back again, 40. And then yesterday I took it again, just kind of like trying to say, all right, look, try to be as strict with yourself as you can. Don't overdo things. Try to be straight. Try to be correct, accurate. And it came back 43 out of 50, this is. Now, the only measures that I have access to are from the one guy's video. The video, the YouTube channel that I had originally watched, and from which I've watched most videos, was Asperger's from the Inside. Very pleasant guy who does a good job explaining things and quick and concise. And he had, in one of his videos, drawn a curve showing about the results of the AQ test and how middling tests obviously are not able to rule out or rule in things. The higher ones tend to rule out someone not having it, although they don't rule in having it, or the specifics of it. I don't. That strikes me as odd, and I think I'm misremembering it. So don't quote me on that. Anyway, it's been consistent, and I'm really trying not to be, have a confirmation bias of any kind when I take it. I also then reading a book I got, a Kindle book. I found out that there's also the EQ test, which is the empathy quotient, and that when I took it again, still trying not to be exaggerating, came back 10 out of 10 out of 80, some absurd number. And anything 30 or lower is considered consistent with, well, ASD. Here's an aside. I had an undiagnosed atrial septal defect until I was 18. That's called an ASD. Used to be anyway. Last time I checked. And so I had an undiagnosed ASD. Now I may possibly have undiagnosed ASD again of a different kind. This is one of the problems with acronyms. They overlap. Quantum electrodynamics, quad erat demonstrandum. I think that's the right Latin. I may be wrong about that. Anyway, sorry. Back on track. That really kind of threw me because I've never thought of myself as a not terribly empathic person. Now, I've never thought of myself as being very intuitively empathic. And I've often said explicitly, look, I don't have any skill reading minds, and I don't know anybody who does. I will not try to read between the lines when people talk. I'll judge them based on what they say and what they do. And, it's served me pretty well. And I have always had an easier time dealing with people. I mean, I've as a doctor, I had pretty good empathy, but then again, that's sort of what you're one-on-one with people there. And I have always tended to watch people. If I'm in a large, one thing that's consistent with the videos and the people talking is I really don't like being in large groups, especially when things are noisy. And when I am, though, I tend to just sort of watch people. I just sort of watch them. The guy from Asperger's from the inside mentioned thinking about seeing a bunch of ducks at the pond and maybe a bunch of ducklings and thinking, oh, look at those cute ducklings. Aren't they interesting to watch? And you would want to watch them and be interested, but you wouldn't think about going in and trying to swim with them because they'd all run away. You're not a duck. And that it was sort of how he felt about groups of people. And I was just like, holy crap, I know exactly what you mean. And then the whole mention of the wrong planet syndrome that they've mentioned, I've even jokingly said that I've seceded from the human race, or at times said I'm actually from Venus, or I'm a Nexus 13, because I really don't feel the same as humans. This is getting longer than I want it to be because I don't really want to make a big long video, but the point is I wanted to kind of do a reveal of what it was that had thrown me for a loop. And of course, at the end of the test, each time you take it, it says, concerned about your results, chat online to a professional, licensed professional, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know where that's based. It may be based out of Great Britain, which is where Simon Baron-Cohen is. I've looked at resources local to South Florida, and so far haven't found anything that looks promising. South Florida, not exactly as medically, or at least neurologically, medically advanced as the UK and Australia. What a surprise. But even thinking about clicking on that stupid link, I've left it open for all day, several days each time. And even thinking about clicking on it is just daunting. The idea of interacting with someone online is just I don't like to talk to new people. I don't like to talk on the phone. I don't like to message with people. I mean, if I click on Facebook and see that someone's messaged me, I more or less close it. I don't want to interact. This has gotten worse since I got divorced, and then of course spent time in prison, where weirdly enough I was reasonably okay because everything was formal and regulated, and I didn't make any waves, and everything was consistent, which may have been why it was okay, relatively speaking. Don't get me wrong, it sucked, but I could handle it. But now, since I have basically no social interactions at all, nothing outside of work. I mean, I have a housemate. We talk a little bit, but I'm fairly standoffish even there. I'm gonna have to lock myself in my room, partly because he has cats, and although I love cats, I'm allergic. So I have to keep them out of my room, and to do that, you have to close the door because cats won't just stay out of a room otherwise. And I wouldn't have the nerve to shoo them out every time, and it would get old very quickly. This is a bit rambly, I know. I don't know what to do from here. The idea of actually trying to find someone from whom I could get a more formal diagnosis or discuss or find a group of people, that's even feels worse, frankly, is ridiculous. No, it's not ridiculous. It's actually, I mean, it's probably sensible, frankly, but it's just, what? That's not, I don't see that as a viable option. That's just not something I see myself doing. I don't quite know how to express it, obviously, without sounding cliche or affected. This all does call to my mind a time when Jacob was young in his Montessori school, and some of them there thought, do you think it's possible that could have Asperger's syndrome? They never thought anything more severe than that, sort of basically mild type stuff. But he had certain attributes that, and at the time, I mean, I was a doctor. I still am, technically, though not in practice. So, I mean, I had a vague awareness of this concept, but didn't really know anything about it. But as far as I could tell, it was just the kid. He was serious and intense, but he didn't have any trouble getting along with anybody. He was focused when he liked something, and sometimes it was hard to get his attention if he was in the middle of reading something he liked. But that, to me, was like, yeah, that's the way you do when you like something you're reading. That's a good thing. That's concentration. That's the way I was. Another aside, just sort of some of the things that I've read and listened to. I remember hating loud noises as a kid, and I still do. My boss arranged for me to be in this office, sort of separate from the room, because they always play music while everyone's on the phone during the day. In the old place, I had ear plugs that I had to put in, and I bought myself these for use here when things get to be too much. And they are really, really severe sometimes. And one time I got so stressed out that my boss, at that time we had sort of two offices because we were trying to expand, and the other one was nearby. The boss just said, Doc, that's what they call me, Doc. Do you want to just take a like a couple hours, just go over to the other office at the, I know you have work that you can do there because a lot of what I do is on the computers, and just, where it's quiet and you can relax. And I did, and that helped a lot. That was very good. He's the only person I have talked to before this about what this might be, because of that and other similar things, I feel like he just may have had experience with it or recognized it, but I think he's just very sensitive and kind, and recognize that while I am quirky and peculiar in my way, I'm also very effective and get shit done. So I mean, I'm still very. I also had taste preferences and aversions that were different than the rest of my family. Everyone else in my family loved mushrooms and cucumbers and raw tomatoes. Not me. Oh boy, hated that stuff. Mostly, more than anything else, I hated eggplant. The smell of cooking eggplant literally made me want to throw up. no aspersions on eggplant, obviously. A lot of people like it. And I always thought, well, maybe I got sick one time after having eaten eggplant and developed that strong aversion to it. But maybe it wasn't that. Maybe this was one of those like neurologic things that you hear about, that smells and tastes and textures and noises. One of my oldest memories is having to be taken out of the Three Caballeros at Disney World when I was very young, because they were shooting off their 6-shooters and the banging just was, I mean, I literally can remember screaming and seeing the bang on the screen and everything and being carried out. And similarly, when we went to Greenfield Village, if they had the Musket Festival, especially when they were running up the cannons, I had to like be taken away and brought into one of the places indoors where it was less loud. I've gotten better with respect to loud noises since, of those kind of noises, the bangs and booms. Although I still don't like them when I don't expect them, but I can appreciate them and not quite have the same aversion. But loud, repetitive, bad hip hop played for background so people can not hear each other on the phone and get distracted by what other people in the room are saying, which is a legitimate reason. But I've often said to them, how about if I just put on a recording of construction noise? How would you guys like that? Because that's sort of how I feel with what you're playing. But anyway, you see, sort of these things kind of made me think, wow, and of course, Jesus, I'm always doing this. Four flips, so that it comes back to the same place. Screwed it up there because I wasn't paying attention. And I feel very upset when I screwed up. Yeah, I'm distracted. I even yanked the camera, being silly. I always have something to fidget with my hands. For a while I had the coins that I rolled across my fingers. Can still do that, but I don't have the coins. I keep losing them. Because eventually, no matter how good you are, you're going to drop it. And if you drop it often enough, eventually it goes somewhere like a sewer. So you lose money. Not very much, but it gets frustrating. And since I rarely use cash anymore, since it's not convenient, I rarely have, and I prefer to do with dollar coins anyway. Anyway, this is going on, and it's about time to practice guitar, so I'm going to cut it short, and it's already cut into my writing time, but I wanted to kind of get this out. If anyone out there has any reactions or thoughts, people who know me, people who don't know me, the odds of anyone actually watching this video seem small, but, I don't know. Some part of me worries that I'm just being melodramatic, but I don't know. And that's part of the reason it might be worthwhile to talk to an actual professional. And I've been to therapists for depression and everything. None of them has specifically talked about anything like Asperger, but then that wasn't what they were seeing me for. They were people seeing me to try to help with my dysthymia and depression, which continue and apparently are pretty common in people with ASD, the neurologic form, not the cardiologic form. So I don't know. I'm puzzled and confused and in a bit of a quandary. I don't know. If anyone who watches this knows me and has any thoughts, I don't. I mean, again, it's not something I would feel bad about, actually. In some ways, it would be nice to sort of say, oh, that's why. Also, honestly, based on the traits and things described among people with Asperger's, everybody still calls it Asperger's, apparently, which is good, because that sort of separates it from, more severe forms of autism spectrum disorder. But I don't know. I don't really know enough about it to know that that's even valid. Honestly, they feel like a superior group of people. It's like Vulcans living in a world of not Klingons, but, well, humans. And I'd rather have the world run by the Vulcans. I think it would be better, frankly. And with the rise of the tech billionaires, maybe it will be. But that's just me being fanciful and sci-fi and horror and melodramatic. This is going nowhere. Well, it's going somewhere. It's a random walk, very much all over the place, but it has a center from which it began and some constraining limits. But it's been 24 minutes and 45 seconds now, though I may edit it down, in which case that won't match the current time. And that's longer by about 2.5 times that I had really intended to go on. But I feel like I want to talk to somebody, but I don't want to talk to somebody. So talking to the computer camera with the possibility of uploading it later is a good option. I suppose then, if that's the case, I'll do more later.